Hey guys, and welcome to this second masterclass on strategy and improving your business model. My name is Denis Oakley, and I'm sitting here on a beautiful sunny Kuala Lumpur morning on my balcony. So if there's a little bit of wind or traffic noise in the background, sorry about that, but it should usually come out in the wash. So this morning we're going to be focusing on having a look at the business model canvas again and using Apple's business model, which we can see right in front of us, to understand the infrastructure part of the business model canvas. And the infrastructure part of the business model canvas, if I can highlight it, is this side of it. It's the, sorry, it's not quite that went a bit wrong. It is the key partners, key activities, and key resources, how these all fit together. So in many ways, the infrastructure part of your business model canvas, of your business model, is all about how you deliver your value proposition. So all these parts of Apple's value proposition, think different, awesome, smooth design, usability, brand or status, somehow have to be created by Apple. And it's exactly the same with your value proposition. Otherwise, you're doing an amazing con job. You're creating something out of nothing for no effort. And that is absolutely brilliant if it does deliver value. So you need a back end to make this all happen. So we got a number of questions, as we did last week, to help you test and determine how effective your business model is, how strong it is, and how you can start thinking about making it better. So the first ones are looking at the key resources. And I'm thinking here, I probably should have identified a few more key resources for Apple, but we'll go with what we've got. So the first question is, are our key resources difficult for customers to replicate, or are they easy to replicate? So a key resources is very much the way I see it. This is a key resource is not only something that you have to actually deliver your key activities and your value proposition. It also should generally be a source of competitive advantage. So in this case, what we have here is we haven't got all the key resources or all the resources that Apple use, because that would actually get pretty confusing. There'd be hundreds and hundreds of different items once you start collating everything. So we've now focused here on the key resources. What is key? What is different about what Apple does than, say, compared to what Dell does? And in this case, we're saying that the key resource is their design culture. And so, I mean, if you think about what Steve Jobs and Johnny Ives have done over the last 20, 30 years, it's clear that Apple has got a design culture that is quite different to the culture of, say, Hewlett-Packard, Lenovo, or Dell, or even Sony, or Samsung in other consumer electronic brands. And so that is a key resource, because that is then able, it goes out, the design culture, we design what people want, it goes out into the think different, it delivers the design, it delivers the usability, and as a result of a lot of that, it delivers the brand and the status. So when you look at your key resources, however you've identified them, it's like, is it something that is pretty common? So, right, I need, okay, my key resource is the fact that I had a long career in FMCG marketing. I was a VP of marketing at Unilever. This is an example, not me, by the way. And you can say, okay, that's great for your company, but frankly, there are probably at least 500 to 1,000 other people in the world who have been at a similar level in a similarly large multinational doing a similar job and now working at one of your competitors. Really, is that a key resource? Again, when we're looking at, say, if you're say, okay, I got a human resource that I've got is the fact I've got a peer, somebody who's a PhD in artificial intelligence, and he is absolutely brilliant at doing machine learning in turning speech into song, which I believe is still technically too difficult a problem to solve. That could well be a key resource, unless you're at a larger company and all your competitors have got large teams of AI researchers, in which case it's like, okay, that's just what you have to get into the game. So here, very much the key resources, are they giving you some competitive advantages? Are they giving you something that is difficult for your competitors to copy? Because one of the differences that we have as entrepreneurs, as opposed to, I guess, businessmen, is when people used to go out and they'd start a furniture shop, or they'd start a fish and chip shop, or they'd start an architect, the business model for each of these companies was almost identical. The only difference was the location, the menu, and perhaps barely even the staff. What you're doing in your business is you're saying, okay, I've got a good business model, and I'm using my business model as a source of competitive advantage. So the next question is, are my resource needs predictable, or are they unpredictable? So I think Apple's a pretty poor example here. So when we're looking at businesses, time for a Coke. When we're looking at businesses, and very much you're always wanting to have this smooth flow. Yep, you want smooth acquisition of customers, smooth revenue, and smooth requirement for key resources. So, for example, if one of your key resources is the expertise of a group of people, or the fact that you've built an amazing database, or that you've got access to a lot of information that you're able to process and turn into value, is that key resource there consistently? Is it demanded consistently, or is it a lot more lumpy? So, for example, one of Amazon's key resources is its IT infrastructure. Back in the early part of this decade, that was a key resource, but it was used very unpredictably, because most of Amazon's sales came in Black Thursday or in the few weeks before Christmas. The rest of the year, it was massively underutilized. A trivial example would Santa's key resource is Rudolph and the rest of the red-nosed reindeer and his sleigh. Yeah, what do they do for 364 days a year? And that is it's a very predictable use of the resource, but it's a very inefficient use of the resource. What impact has seasonality got on the pull on your resources? Have you got a very lumpy stream of customer requirements, so you're constantly spinning up your key resources, spinning them down, spinning them up, spinning them down? Can you find better ways? Can you find change your business model so there's a consistent pull on the requirements on your key resources? So, for example, a lot of this thought comes from manufacturing, where if you're trying to optimize the whole system at once, you often find that you've got an awful lot of local suboptimal processes. Many ways to get the best output. You work out, how do we start working out how to get the best flow through the system to get the maximum output. That's much better than trying to optimize each individual process. And this gives you a lot more powerful, it gives you a lot more control over the business. And then, do we deploy the key resources in the right amount at the right time, or we have trouble making sure that we're able to deploy the resources that we need at the right time? Classic examples of this, I guess, would be harvest time, when pretty much all in the old farming industry, all the crops came together at the end of August, early September, that was harvest time, needed to harvest, and suddenly there was a huge demand. Everybody would be out working from 5 a.m. in the morning to midnight every night to try and gather the crops and the harvest in. And the success or failure of the village was how effectively it would be able to mobilize everybody to get out there and use them all at once. And that's a case where there is a very high seasonal demand for your key resources, but the key thing is, can you use them efficiently or not? In other cases, it may be pretty much constant demand for the key resources. Again, let's go back to the car factory example, but you're unable to deploy your robots or your staff, or you've got a lot of low paid, low morale staff who really don't care about the quality of their work. Are you able to get those resources deployed effectively to deliver consistent high quality all the way through? And this is a big problem, certainly for a lot of legacy companies, but also for a lot of startups as they grow, and the founder's span of control is, you've got too many people reporting to him, too many people doing too many things, and there isn't enough control. And this is one of the times when you founders start to see they're losing control of the key resources, and the execution is starting to fail there. This then leads us on into the key activities, and we're talking about, okay, how do we efficiently execute them? Or key activity execution is inefficient. So, for example, let's go back to the manufacturing at Apple. So they outsource, I think, the vast majority of their manufacturing to Foxconn. I can't remember the Taiwanese name for them, Hohin or something like that. And they have these massive factories in China with sort of 100,000 people in the factory. And Apple has decided that it's way more efficient to get somebody else to execute that key activity on their behalf rather than executing it themselves. However, in the software development, they've got a reasonably effective parallel process of software development, because Apple has a large range of different software products. You've got the pages and the sheet and numbers, software products like that on iOS and Mac. You've got the operating systems, iOS and whatever the current Mac operating system is. You've got the different components. You've got the iTunes, you've got the iMovie, and you've got all of these components within iOS. And so all of these are running in parallel, but they've got a similar standard of controlling the way that the software development works, controlling the quality, controlling the testing, and that then all comes in very effectively. Most of the time, Microsoft famously had way more problems. If you look at the development of different Windows operating systems, and they had huge problems trying to get that software development process working well because of the amount of legacy code that they had to resolve, or they couldn't actually adjust. So when you're looking at your key activities, how can you make them as efficient as possible? And there's certainly a trade-off here. Because at early stages in a startup, you often don't want to be massively efficient, because as you become more and more efficient, you lose flexibility. If you're still not 100% clear on your business model, you're still working out the best way to do things, then it's actually a benefit not to have a very efficient activity or delivery of some activities, because going faster in the wrong direction is still going in the wrong direction. You want to be going in the right direction slowly more than you want to be going in the wrong direction quickly. Next question. Are key activities difficult to copy, or are they pretty easy to copy? So going back into the world in 1980, for example, and most entrepreneurs, when I started off, I went to the business center and said, hey, I want to start a company. And they said, okay, so what do you want to do? Do you want to start a fish and chip shop? Or that was what people were, or I think the other section was a hairdresser's. That was what I was asked. And those are business models where the key activities are incredibly easy to copy. You go down a high street and you look at every hairdresser's, and frankly, the only difference between them is in the different staff. And that's a different problem to understanding how to choose the right staff or choose the right hairdressers, but they are easy to copy. And as you add in more hairdressers on the high street, you lose revenue because your key activities are not sufficiently differentiated to give you some sort of competitive advantage. So one of the classic cases for a consultant is, okay, have they got a signature product? Classic one you've probably all heard of, Stephen Covey. Yeah, he's a leadership and development coach. Yeah, there are millions of those. But he had the 7 habits of highly successful people. That was the key activity that he did that was incredibly difficult to copy, even though 90% of what he did within that key activity was very similar to what other people did. So looking at your key activities, what is it on your website, in the information that you give customers, in the services that you deliver to them, that is unique, that is difficult to copy, that a competitor cannot just go into your website, decompose everything, look at the source code and say, okay, I know how he does that, and like rocket internet, then sort of re-engineer an identikit business, plop it down somewhere else, and then start stealing revenue that could have been yours. The more you can make your key activities unique to deliver competitive advantage, the better off you are. That said, it takes time, and that may or may not be appropriate for the market that you're in. Okay, so the execution quality is high or it's shockingly bad. Sometimes shockingly bad execution quality is perfectly okay. If you've ever had a meal at an airport or a coffee at a railway station, you'll know you don't really need to do a good job at all. If you're a monopoly, why do you need to bother being able to execute your key activities really, really well? On the other hand, if you're in a very, very competitive environment, the delivery, the high quality of your delivery is one of the ways to really break in. And for the small businesses like ours, being able to deliver exceptional quality and deliver exceptional quality on the value proposition. So it's not only that we do awesomely smooth design, but we're able to deliver it incredibly well. And that then is the very sharp tip of the spear that you are digging into the guts of some of these giant incumbent companies because they cannot compete. And so this obsession with excellence, which you see in a lot of entrepreneurs, the Zappos guy, Tony Hsieh, because I can't remember how to pronounce his name right now, or Robert Kawasaki, what they're talking about is how can you achieve something absolutely remarkable. And Seth Godin is another person who talks about making your key activities so excellent that they become remarkable. Okay, do you have the right balance of in-house services versus outsourced execution? We've already talked here in Apple's case about the manufacturing. They've decided, okay, it's a lot better for us to ship that out. Why don't we ask, okay, could they shift out the quality control? maybe they could, and that's something that's a clear process that can be managed, that can be tested in a number of ways, and you can shift a lot of that out. Could you shift out software development? Well, no, probably, because that is too tightly linked to the design culture. And if you get rid of the design culture and the software development, well, then really you've kind of hollowed out what Apple is, and it then gives the opportunities for the key partners to then be coming in and saying, okay, Apple, you're just an empty shell brand. Let's start eating your pie. And that has been classically the way that a lot of Chinese or Asian manufacturers have entered markets, and indeed before them Japanese, and indeed before that German and American manufacturers way back in the 1850s and 1860s. Yeah, outsource everything to us, then you learn how to do it, and then you come up with better products and services than the original brand owner. So there's a balance there, but there's also your ability to actually control the output of your outsourced partners. And this is often a very big problem for entrepreneurs, because many entrepreneurs have a naive faith, and I've certainly been guilty of this myself, that if you outsource to an expert, the expert is going to be able to do as good a job as you expect them to, or you believe them to, or have a vision that they will be able to do. And often a lot of the mundane work can be outsourced fairly easily and effectively, but still you're kept with a disproportionate amount of the time-consuming, difficult to work out, difficult to think through components that really contribute to the final excellence of the product or service. Now, finally, coming on to the last section of this part, looking at the infrastructure component of the business model canvas and how to improve your business model. We're focusing now on the key partners. Let's move this all a little back together. So we're focused and we work with the key partners when necessary, or we're unfocused and we fail to work sufficiently with key partners. And I think here this is at the core of the make or buy decision that many entrepreneurs and small businesses face. On the one hand, you have to say, okay, I can make something very, very good myself. It's going to do everything that I really want it to, but how much is it going to cost? On the other hand, I can pay somebody who is already an expert in making this, and they will make it for me. Which is going to be cheaper or faster to bring to market? Which is going to give me the best opportunity? And I think entrepreneurs make a number of different mistakes here. Firstly, they either make too much themselves, or they outsource too much to other people, and they don't get the balance right. Yeah, so that could, and there are a whole range of different problems that those cause. The other mistake that many entrepreneurs make is not thinking about what the right balance should be, and not trying to understand where it is. So for a lot of early entrepreneurs, very, very often it's important not to outsource. I think Paul Graham has got a brilliant article on saying, do things that don't scare. It's way more important to be utterly inefficient to start with, as you work out what you need to do yourself, as you seek to understand the problems, the processes, and the systems. It's only when you get to a certain point that you're then able to make competent judgments about where the right balance is finally and completely. So for one example, from me, years ago, I was running a trading company, and we'd use Salesforce and set everything up like that. And we tried outsourcing a lot of the basic data entry to VAs in the Philippines, and they did the job, but it didn't really work. We got so many quality problems and spent so much time improving the Salesforce workflows that it really wasn't cost effective. So we said, okay, let's get rid of all the VAs. We'll go back, and I ended up doing a job for a couple of weeks that we were paying somebody $5 an hour to do in the Philippines, which on the face of it was a total waste of my time and money. Doing that, understood, redesigned the process, understood what we really needed out of it, and then slowly handed it out to the girl in the Philippines, got that working a lot better, and then 2 months later, totally automated it with some machine learning processes, as we then got enough data to get it working smoothly, and that got rid of something like 95% of the processing that we've done, and saved 2 to 3 man hours a day, and that's a very effective approach to be taking when you're starting to look at working with key partners. It's working out, when do you need them, how do you need them, why do you need them, rather than just saying, oh, he can do that, grab him, and not think too deeply about how good a job it's going to be and whether it's going to fit in with where you are as a company right now. And then the final question today, we enjoy good working relationships with our key partners, or working relationships with our key partners are conflict ridden. I used to work many years ago in the railway industry, and we had absolutely terrible relationships with our key customer, as it happened. But looking at it from the railway point of view, where we were an engineering company, they always wanted the lowest bid possible. So my company and lots of other companies just basically put in the lowest bid possible, with the intention that as soon as any variation came up, we'd say, that's not in the contract, we do a variation, and then we get another 3%, then another 5%, then another 8%, and eventually we get the value of the contract up to where it should be, despite all their over-the-top cost cutting. And that whole decision to focus very much on cost at rail tracks level meant that there were a lot of very, very contractual, very, very difficult working relationships through the whole industry. And that can be something that is natural to the industry, or it can be something that's caused by your own corporate decision. Do you need, generally, to have great working relationships? A lot of theory and practice says, well, if you're employing key partners who are totally interchangeable, there's very little differentiation between them, and the quality is the same and the process is the same, why do you give a shit? Yeah? If you don't like them, if the relationship just gets a little bit too bad or too difficult, sack them, pull somebody in, and churn and burn, churn and burn, churn and burn. That's not a way that I like to work, but a lot of companies have done that. After Sam Walton died, that's the way that Walmart started to go with its customer, with its staff, and it suffered massively as a consequence. Other approaches, if you look at the way that Google and Facebook and other companies pamper their staff, and other companies create wonderful, very tight relationships with their suppliers. If you look at, I think some of the B Corp, which is the do socially good corporations in the US, one of their requirements is to have great relationships with suppliers. How long are suppliers with you? Are you keeping a supplier for 10 years and building relationships based on trust, even though you won't necessarily be getting the lowest price, because overall you get a much better business, you've got less firefighting, less struggles. So all of these questions that I've been looking at today on the infrastructure side of the business, I think in every case, you could build a business model where you go on the one side or on the other side. Yeah, there isn't a right answer. The importance is that you're thinking about the choices that you're making in the business model. Have you got something that is working for you? If you changed it, if you put more emphasis on, okay, can we get, what would happen if we don't need to spend so much money on making our key activities so efficient? Does the business model still work? Are we spending too much money on focusing on efficiency here where it's not that important? Have we got key resources that are really, really powerful, or are we paying for key resources that we don't actually need, that it's far more effective to be buying from somebody else? These are the questions that I want you to be thinking about and to take away. Okay, thanks a lot, guys, and look forward to seeing you at the next session, which is going to be over on the other side of the business model canvas, where we're going to be looking at the customer interface. Okay, thanks for that. Speak to you next time.